Good afternoon and happy Thursday, everyone. I hope you all have had a great week so far. And welcome to another episode of RM in Smart Investing. I had this plan for quite some time, but it's interesting that I thought it would be a timely time subject on artificial intelligence, especially after yesterday's or after hours NVIDIA's earnings report. And what we're gonna do, just get a little more familiar. And if most of you recall, we went to internet era in 1990s, and we saw the bubble. And whether this will be a similar path or not, uh, internet's still with us, and it is a driving force. So that was real. And at the end of our presentation, you see that artificial intelligence, it's real, and the excitement is real. So I thought that it would be, again, a good time. So I'm going to go backward. I'll start rather than just going to what is artificial intelligence. First, I want to share with you the top 10 largest companies who are involved with artificial intelligence, and they've been investing tons of money, and they are the big players. And then we'll see what happened today in the market, which is Thursday, February 22nd, the day after NVIDIA's reporting. And if you recall, we talked about it on our market analysis over the weekend. Um, mentioned that the whole market is waiting for NVIDIA, and it didn't disappoint us. So here's the top 10 companies. We have Microsoft, and with Microsoft, most of you know the OpenAI and the ChatGPT. It's just revolutionized everything. So that's one of the things about Microsoft. Invested heavily in one of the, obviously, the largest company now in the S&P 500. The next is Google, and or Alphabet company, and they have the quantum computing, and of course they had a little setback. The news came out yesterday, and the perhaps the most exciting of all is the NVIDIA. They really got to market. They cornered the market in the sense, with their the video processing, and they're involved in everything, whether it's the cars or obviously the semiconductors. So, and then we have Amazon, and then they are in obviously the uh, processing, the clouds, and then Meta is in the social media side of the things, or the Facebook. Then we have the Taiwan Semiconductor. Again, this is in the semiconductor uh, division and sector. And then we have the Adobe, and Adobe is really big on basically on the Firefly and the illustration. They have Sensei AI, so they are big. And we also have IBM and Arista Net. So they're big ones. Now, if you allow me, I'm going to correct. I just noticed that we have 9 here. So let me insert another one for you, and that's another semiconductor company, which is ASML. So let me just move these up so you can see this. And sorry about that, but I just remembered. And ASML, they've been some problems with China and little politics. But anyway, these are your top 10 companies that really what they do, they compromise almost 30 to 40% of the market. So as I said, I'm starting from the end because I want to show you what happened today. Actually, as soon as NVIDIA came out with their earnings, you could see NASDAQ just start flying, and then S&P. And this is as of today's closing. You can see NASDAQ was up 485 points or 2.77%, and S&P was almost 2%. And we did break, we talked about the magic 5,000. We went back through that, and now we have broken above the all-time high. And you see that Russell 2000 didn't react quite a bit as strongly as others. And the reason is because when you go to NASDAQ 100, I want to see the top 10 companies that I just mentioned. These are by the market cap. You see Microsoft, NVIDIA, Amazon, Google, Meta, ASML, Adobe. Uh, uh, Basically, they are all in there, and look at their movements. Of course, NVIDIA was a big winner at almost 16%. So, and AMD was also in semiconductor was a big winner. So that's also another one. And that's the reason you want to pay attention to these AI stocks. There's a lot of excitement. And as I said, at the end of our presentation, we'll see whether they have legs to stand on. One of the things you could see with NVIDIA's earnings, which again, the market was really enthusiastic, is their revenues. And by the way, today, I think NVIDIA broke 1 day market cap movement in 1 day. They are actually almost a $2 trillion company, and they had a huge numbers. They beat all the expectations. And again, when we look at the S&P, look at the Microsoft movement, look at NVIDIA's movement, look at Meta's movement, we look at Google, Amazon, and then basically we have when we go to semiconductors, Applied Material and AMD. And so you see why we have to pay attention to this. Now, this could be obviously a lot of momentum. There was short covering, but also there's a fundamental story in NVIDIA. And again, when we look at the PE ratios, we look back, you're looking at about 103. But then when you go over quarter, when you look at just the growth, it's just astronomical. The question is, next year, this time, are we looking at a triple-digit growth, or are we going to normalize? So, but at the end of the day, this is not just about stock performance, but the reason I want to share this, why the market is paying attention to this, and why you should also pay attention to this. This is, again, taking more and more percentage of the market's performance. So we're getting really concentrated. So that's one concern that I have. But it is what it is. And you can see, despite the Fed minutes and other things, the market just flew by NVIDIA. So let's have a little history. First of all, finding out what is AR, artificial intelligence. And basically it's a branch of computer science. And it is concerned on the machine intelligence. So a lot of you are familiar with this. You've seen it, whether we use search engines like Google, or we look at the content recommendations like Netflix or YouTube. Of course, these self-driving vehicles will be a talk of the town. If you look at some of the old movies, you see how that was a fantasy and it's actually happening. The language translation is just becoming so advanced now. Facial recognition, the games, spam filters. Anyway, all of these are a system that they perform the tasks, but they do require the human intelligence. But eventually, as we will see, the goal is it possible they absolutely become independent? Artificial intelligence, more people are familiar with it in the last couple of years, perhaps. In 2022, it became big with all the investing in it and, with NVIDIA talk. But if we go back 100 years almost, or 85 years, I would say, and the father of artificial intelligence and computer, in a sense of like the cryptos, is Alan Turing. And Alan Turing, if you've seen, watch a movie about his life, it's fascinating. He was born in London in 1912, and great mind in mathematics, and obviously, as I mentioned, the logic and cryptography, and then his fame came during the World War II. He was actually they have big credit that he single-handedly perhaps really defeated the Germans by breaking the codes. And he came up with this code-breaking machine. Unfortunately, there were some personal things that uh, obviously it affected his life, and in 1954 he died. We don't know exactly, but it's supposed to be a suicide. But anyway, unfortunately, very short life for such a brilliant man. So you can see, well, it has been around since World War II. We just really now working a lot more on it. So again, this is a little more of an introduction. Hopefully, by end of our session, you will have a better understanding of AI. There's a weak AI which does like one task, and those are like they work like one data. Video games like Alexa, tell me, what is the score today, or Siri. Then you have the strong AI that they're more human-like. They actually solve problems and they take the initiative. So we would say they're more independent in that sense, like self-driving car, or you have intuitive surgery, ISRG, which has actually started these robotics that they can actually do the surgery on their own. So there are really four types of AI. Uh, the first one, the most basic one, is the reactive, and they have no memory. They only respond to different stimuli. One example I give you, for instance, if you go back, if you remember Boris Kasparov and then Deep Blue, like IBM, they played that chess game. And at that time, that was a huge thing. So that would be a reactive. Then you have the limited memory, and it uses the memory to learn and improve it in its response. So the good example would be, for instance, the things that the patterns, the recognition. I would say they actually keep learning, and then they use that data to analyze more. So that would be again more of an algorithm. Then you have the theory of mind. Now things are getting a lot more complicated. They actually understand the needs of other intelligent entities. So that's when we think about machine learning. And the whole goal is they will think like humans. The last end, which could be a blessing, but also not so, is something called self-aware. At this point, which is the ultimate thing, is they actually develop consciousness. They become self-aware. If you would have watched like Steven Spielberg's, the AI movie, I think it was late 1990s. It's like this is again, could we be there? Could they have consciousness? So these are the four types of AIs. Now, as far as the uses, there's so many uses now because of, again, this rapid growth. Uh, we look at the customer's experience, but those all the data analysis, supply chain, human resources, how about fraud detection, the banks, and we look at the money laundering and the knowledge creation, research and development. When you think about just the medical, and you think about scannings and imaging, and as I said, in financials, you look at the banking. It also allows us the predictive analytics and operational management, customer service. I mean, there's just tons of things based on the data that, as I mentioned, it is in medical, it is in transportation, it is in financial. How about legal? Going through all the documents. So there are many, many, many uses. Obviously, a lot of people are excited, like ChatGPT, which is really beginning, and then ChatGPT 4, OpenAI. So there are tons of usages. Um, so what happens? We have again artificial intelligence. You have machine learning, and then we have deep learning. So machine learning is something that has been created, but it's, I will call it, is dependent. And what I mean by that, it depends on the data that we feed it. A good example will be, again, since we are talking about trading and other things, it will be a pattern recognition. We give the data, the algos. Think about Jim Simmons, Renaissance hedge fund. He uses his mathematical numbers. And again, we think about algos. So that's more of a dependency. When you think about deep learning, think of independent. They do actually uh, uh, use their own analytics to analyze things, and they use that network, so they don't have the human interference. So that's the ultimate thing. So that's called deep learning. Again, going back, there are just so many uh, branches of the artificial intelligence. Is obvious, I mentioned machine learning, that it actually could develop to go to deep learning. And as I mentioned, there's dependence and independence. Then you have the natural language processing, classification, extraction, machine translation, questions answering, text generation. As a matter of fact, like some of the things that in the future will happen, like the plagiarism and the tests, and then we have the expert system, we have the vision, which is actually going to be big. That's the image recognition, machine vision. Then you have this speech, which is actually being used now, speech to text, text to speech. Even in YouTube right now, it is being applied, planning, and of course the robotics. So this is just part of it as far as the pros and cons of. There are many other things. These are just a sample of some of the pros are obviously the sophisticated logical reasoning, and the high calculation capacity is just unbelievable how fast they can go through the data. The availability applicable to all kinds of important fields. Tools for the prediction of future developments, more efficient process. Obviously, reducing the human errors, uh, and automation, in the medical, as I mentioned, in financial. The cons are more of there will be, I would say, the ethical issues that we have to deal with. As a matter of fact, I just said tidbit, like, in 2021, and the European Union, they have come out with their own um, bylaws, and they are, how to protect actually the human privacy. And also there's a Bill of Rights, believe it or not, Bill of Rights regarding artificial intelligence. So we got to be a little bit concerned about those things. So as I mentioned, there's a privacy concerns. How about social profile generations? And how about if there's a wrong information out there about us, manipulation of elections, or our consumption behavior? Again, data in, data out, right? So garbage in, garbage out. Loss of jobs, which is very natural in any type of I would say, innovations. We've gone through many of these. So, uh, for instance, when it comes to finances, and we will talk about portfolio management and other things, a lot of these, I would say, white collar jobs are not going to be there. So, and as a matter of fact, Citigroup has already started, laying off people. Imagine by end of the 2020s, these are the jobs that, especially in like a financial industry, as we've had in manufacturing, for instance, they will be replaced by other things. And one of the things I remember, I have a good, very uh, successful trader friend, and many years ago he said anyone who wants to get studying go to education, what he recommended is learn a coding language. He said that's the future, and he was not wrong. He was absolutely right. So again, these cons: market manipulation, excessive power for a handful of companies, serious threat to humanity. So these are parts of those. And of course, as I mentioned, there's ethical issues. Could the crime be, involved in this? We talked about sabotage and, other things, that terrorism. So let's look at now. I mentioned in the beginning that, does this have leg? And well, as you can see, this is a good reference place if you want to. It's called President's Research, and you can see in 2022 the market size was 454 billion, and now when we look at the growth by projection, it might be a little optimistic, but projection is $2.5 trillion. So you can see there is a lot of potential, and there's actual really need as far as being really aware of what's happening. So the other thing, when it comes to algorithmic, we've talked about algos and in trading, and when it comes to the platforms, you see there have been just the growth is tremendous, and we're talking about 11.3% compounding every year. So I've said it, by year 2030, 29, 30, probably 90 to 95% all the trading is going to be done by algorithms. And so we want to be aware of that. Now, we talked about that was general, but US parts of the market size is US being the leading really innovation in the artificial intelligence. You can see by 2032, US market size will be about 594 billion, coming from 103 billion in 2022. So the last but not least, when it comes to asset management, and if people are in portfolio management or they want to go to investment advisory and things, well, I don't have good news for them, because the machines are going to be really doing a lot of those works, and even the hedge funds. Now, when you look at Bridgewater and Ray Dalio, they are more advanced, and they do actually started using these. But I'm talking about standalone fund managers. That's going to be a difficult task. So as you can see right now, the machine learning segment is about 1.5 billion, and portfolio optimization at this about 25%. But when we look at by 2032, we are going from $2.5 billion in asset management share of these to 20.5 billion. And that's 25% compound annual rate. So growth rate. So that is something that we have to pay attention. And so it was I tried to make it short and sweet, but just opening your eyes, hopefully, to some of the opportunities, but also why we need to pay attention to these things. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop recording and open up for any, actually, it's more of a conversation than just a Q&A. So thank you so much. Let me just stop the recording.